back to another episode of The Happy Woodworker. Today we are going to be laying out our tambour track template and cutting that out with a portable router. So when we come back, you're going to have bird's eye view, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Alright, welcome back everyone. So I've already started my first one over here. There we go. So I've started my first one already, and I'm going to show you how I did that. If you remember, we started out with a template of the whole thing, and then we cut out a template just to do our track. And that's where we pick up today. There's that template. So what I've done is I laid this down on here, lined it up to where it was supposed to be. I'm flat with my edge on the bottom. Now if you've laid out your template the way I did, I had figured in a 1/2 inch dovetail down here. So my template, when laying on top, has to also set flush with the bottom of that dovetail. So that will make a difference on how this turns out based on how you cut yours. So we lined that up, and I had a specific measurement in mind. What counts for doing this is your distance from this curved edge. We don't care about what our distance is in the back. If you remember, I had extra room back here. So I took a measurement over, and I actually ended up a 32nd off on my measurement here, but I was okay with that. So I'm a 32nd further in than what I had planned on. But my measurement for this was 1 inch, so I'm 1 inch and 1/32. So I took a measurement based off of that. That's where my template sets. Once I square it flush to the bottom of my dovetail, or the bottom of your board if you're not counting the dovetail on your template, then you have the basic track for your actual tambour track. Now how did I get this line right here, you might ask? What I did, you remember I set this up. And by the way, since I did my last video, you guys remember I was sizing this, and I had this big, huge, deep pilot bushing. Bushing, bearing, whatever you want to call that. It's not really a bearing. We'll call it a bushing. But it was real deep. I decided I was uncomfortable with that. This is a cheap little Harbor Freight bushing set. I put it on my belt sander and ground it right down to a 1/4 inch, which is the depth of my MDF. Actually, I'm probably a 64th or a 32nd smaller than a 1/4 inch, but you get the idea. I wanted this to set flat so I could have my router plate sit flat on here and rotate right around. So the way that I got my line in here, just as a guideline, I set this down, clamped this in place, put a pencil right on this outward edge as I went around, and when I moved this, what I came up with was my line right here that I'll be able to see and follow. I wanted to see this before I cut it, right? Because once you cut it, there's no going back. And I wanted to make sure that nothing was going to be, nothing was going to look funky, it wasn't going to be off, it wasn't going to come too close up here or too far away down here. I wanted to have a consistent measurement. And once I lay out my pencil mark, I can see, that actually looks pretty good. So that's how I did that. So now, this one, and before I go too much further, before you even do any of this, you need to decide what's the inside and what's the outside. I've chosen this as my inside, and I chose this one as my inside. So now that we know what surface we're cutting on, this one I have to flip over. And it won't do me any good to bring out my other template, because all my measurements are on this side, right? So when I flip it over, there's nothing here. That's where our measurement comes in handy to know how far over from this edge I am. So I'm going to come over, line this template up. I have an exact match to where it's sat on this one. And once I square my edges here, then I know where this template is supposed to sit. Just for fun, I'll put in a few pencil marks. Now, those will match identically to each other. So if I set this back down, we line it up, make sure our measurement is still accurate. I would clamp that down, and if I wanted to see my guideline, I could come in here and do the same exact thing, which we are going to do, because I want to know for sure that it's going to look the way that I want it to look. And now, just for fun, let's go around. Now I've got to make sure my pencil is in the far corner over here, as far away from my template as possible. And there we go. Now I can stop and look, and I can say, okay, I know I've got a 1/2 inch here. Does this still look like I can even measure if I want to and make sure I'm happy with where this template sets before I cut anything. But that's what we're going to do. So, to actually do the cutting, we're going to get a bit in our router, and I have to change my router plate over. So when we come back, that's what we're going to be doing, is cutting our tambour tracks. We'll see you in a few. So getting a real good camera angle for this proved to be really difficult. As you're doing this, make sure that you're cutting counterclockwise. That way the bit is pulling you into the template, and otherwise if you're not, it can carry you right out away from it and you'll ruin your cut. But like I said, I had a hard time filming this, particularly on the other one. It was quite awkward with the camera next to me to safely do this with a router. So I've only included the footage of just this one side, but the other side was done the same exact way. And as long as you have a steady pull through this, you keep going counterclockwise, you'll end up with a relatively good cut. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. So there you have it, everyone. Not the smoothest cut in the world that I've ever done, but it did alright. And next up, I think we're probably going to be cutting our tamburs going here, our slats. So we will see you the next time around. And thanks for watching, and happy woodworking, everyone. See you next time.